As a hobby butterfly, I flitter from one project to the next, rarely finishing one. So in this new series on my channel, I'm going to start documenting some of these long-standing paint projects. Before we get started, it's time for the question of the episode. Let me know in the comment section, what is the miniature hobby project you was excited to start, but then you never got around to finishing? To kick this new series off, I'm going to be tackling SKAETH'S Wild Hunt Warband from Warhammer Underworlds. This video will be done in 3 parts. Now the goal for these projects is to get them finished and to a good gaming standard, not competition level. This way I'm much more likely to complete them. As you can see, with the first 2 members, I've made a good start, but with different colour schemes. So today's video, I'm mainly going to be bringing Alphaeon, I think that's in it, more in line with Shiok. I'm super happy with how he looks, with pretty much just the sword and base to go. As you can see from Alphaeon, the fur on the legs isn't matching where I was going with the tail and the hair on the head, so this will be done to match. Also, I was originally going to go with non-metallic metal. I think I'm going to stick to true metals this time. I do prefer this lighter green on the armour, but I'm so happy with the results of Alphaeon's armour that I think I'll keep it this way. Maybe it's special family armour or something like that. So to start with, I'm going to paint base coat of Games Workshop's Rhinox hide fully over the hair, tail and any areas I want to do gold, being extremely careful not to get any on the areas I've already painted. Now that's done, I'm going to be doing the first layer of Doomball Brown over the hair and tail. I'm doing my best to remember how I painted the leg fur, as it was done back in 2019 when the miniatures were first released. I highly recommend taking notes on your painting recipes to avoid things like this happening in the future. I lay this colour on using a technique called overbrushing. I think of it a bit like dry brushing, but with more paint on the brush, the goal being to create a nice solid coat, but leaving a darker brown shown in the recesses. Of course, you can still dry brush it instead, or start with mid-tone brown and do a wash of dark brown, such as Agate Earthshade. But this is just my preferred way, as I feel I have more control of where the paint goes. And next up is Deathclaw Brown. This is applied in a similar fashion to the last Doomball Brown, except this time I'm going to be covering about 50% of the hair, concentrating close to the tips. Two more layers we added after this. One is an equal 50-50 mix of Deathclaw Brown and Screaming Skull, a nice bone colour, as the name suggests, followed by thin highlights of pure Screaming Skull, mostly at the top of each hair strand. Now once this is done, it didn't quite match the fur. Once again, the importance of writing what paint to use. It needs to be a bit more reddy brown, so I've watered down some Doomball Brown to create a glaze, which is applied over most of the hair and tail, but avoiding the furry tips to keep that strong highlight. I did apply it a bit too thick, but this was solved by removing excess paint using a clean, damp, but not dripping wet, brush. The goal of the glaze here is to make a reddish tint. Now the leather belts and fan braces were painted with Rhinox hide, and then a few smaller highlights done by adding increasing amounts of Screaming Skull up to pure bone. This was toned down slightly with Rhinox hide's glaze, as it was a little too light. The little lace areas were painted with just pure Screaming Skull. The hooves I painted fairly quickly. I base coated them in black and then added increasing amount of Screaming Skull to the black for highlights. Each layer was applied in lines to give it a groove effect and get them lighter towards the bottom of the hooves. Now onto the gold. I'm going to be keeping it simple, so I'll start with Retributor Gold and then add highlights to Liberator Gold, mix in some Model Air Silver from Vallejo, it's my favourite silver, for the final highlight. And to finish, I'll shade with GW's Old Chestnut Ink. This isn't available anymore, but it is my favourite shade for reddish gold. Of course, if you can't get any, you can mix in some red and brown ink or wash for a similar colour. I did need to do a couple of coats of Retributor for a nice solid base coat. Now onto the fletching on the arrows, base coat of Rakar Flesh, followed by a wash of Skeleton Horde contrast paint. As this is a game piece, I didn't feel I had to go too crazy with these small details like this. Of course, you can deepen the shadows and add highlights if you want to. And there we go. After just a few hours of painting, the miniature is almost done, just minus the base. This I will cover in an upcoming video once the rest of the miniatures are ready. These I will be covering in the next video, and then the bases will be a third video. Thank you all very much for watching, and I hope to see you all next time. Goodbye everyone.